Ethan Cole stood very still as the glass doors closed behind him. The sound was soft, almost gentle, but it felt final. He was inside the grand medical spire of the Velari Collective, one of the most advanced civilizations in the known galaxy. The walls around him were smooth and white, glowing faintly with moving patterns of light. Machines floated silently in the air, scanning everything without sound or touch. Ethan adjusted the simple jacket he wore. It was earth-made, practical, and plain. Compared to the flowing robes and shimmering armor of the alien doctors around him, he looked small and outdated. He could feel their eyes on him, curious, amused, dismissive. He had been invited here as part of a diplomatic exchange. Humans had only recently joined the wider galactic community. Most species saw them as strong, stubborn, and strangely adaptable, but not advanced, especially not in medicine. Ethan was a doctor, a human one, and today he was very aware of how alone that made him. "Is this truly the human medical representative?" a sharp voice asked. Ethan looked up. The speaker was tall, with pale blue skin and silver markings along her face that shifted slightly as she moved. Her eyes were narrow and bright, full of confidence. She wore a badge marked with complex symbols, high rank. "This is Dr. Zyra Valeth," said the guide beside Ethan, chief medical scientist of the Velari. Zyra looked Ethan up and down without hiding her judgment. "He looks fragile." Ethan kept his face calm. He had trained for moments like this. "I assure you, Dr. Valeth, I am fully qualified." Zyra let out a soft laugh. "Qualified by human standards, perhaps." Around them, several alien doctors made quiet clicking sounds that Ethan guessed were laughter. He felt his jaw tighten but said nothing. They began to walk down a long corridor. Transparent walls revealed massive rooms filled with patients suspended in glowing fields. Machines adjusted their bodies at a molecular level. Diseases were erased before symptoms appeared. Injuries healed in minutes. Zyra spoke as they walked. "Velari medicine has eliminated illness for over 4,000 cycles. Our children do not know pain. Our people do not fear death from disease." "That's impressive," Ethan said honestly. "Of course it is," Zyra replied. "Which is why I find it confusing that the council insisted we include a human in our research exchange." Ethan glanced at her. Maybe they believe different perspectives can help. She stopped walking and turned to face him. Her markings darkened slightly. "Perspective is useful only when it adds value. Human medicine relies on chemicals, guesswork, and allowing the body to suffer while it struggles to heal itself." She leaned closer. "Primitive." Ethan met her gaze. "Human medicine is built on understanding the body, not controlling it." Zyra straightened, unimpressed. "Understanding without mastery is meaningless." They continued walking. Ethan was shown a small observation room overlooking a central chamber. He was told to watch, listen, and not interfere unless asked. That was clear enough. He sat quietly as Velari doctors discussed cases using complex holographic displays. Hours passed. Ethan noticed something odd. One patient, a young Velari, was receiving more attention than the others. Machines adjusted repeatedly. The doctor's tones were sharp and tense. Zyra entered the chamber, her confident posture slightly strained. "What is happening?" Ethan asked the guide softly. The guide hesitated. "There is a complication." The young Velari patient lay inside a transparent field. His skin flickered between shades of blue and gray. His breathing was uneven. "Our scans show no infection," one doctor said. "No cellular damage, no foreign agents." "Yet his condition worsens," another replied. Zyra's jaw tightened. "Increase neural stabilization again." The machine complied, nothing changed. Ethan leaned forward in his seat. He felt a familiar sense rising in his chest. Concern, focus. This was not just technology anymore. This was a patient. He stood up. "I think I might be able to help," he said carefully. The room went silent. Zyra turned slowly. "You will sit down." Ethan didn't move. You said there's no infection, no damage, but his body is reacting like it's under attack. And, Zyra snapped. And sometimes, Ethan continued, choosing his words, the problem isn't an external threat. Sometimes the body turns against itself. The alien doctors exchanged confused looks. Zyra laughed, sharp and cold. The body attacking itself, that is illogical. It happens in humans, Ethan said. Autoimmune responses, stress-induced failures, feedback loops. Zyra waved a hand. Human weaknesses are not relevant here. The patient suddenly convulsed. Alarms lit up across the chamber. Stability dropping, a doctor shouted. Zyra's confidence faltered just for a moment. She turned back to the machines, issuing rapid commands. Nothing worked. Ethan stepped closer to the glass. He watched the patient's movements, the rhythm of his breathing, the way his muscles tightened and released. It reminded him of cases back on Earth, rare ones, difficult ones. He's overheating, Ethan said quietly. That is impossible, Zyra replied. His temperature is regulated perfectly. Not internally, Ethan said. Your machines are forcing balance from the outside. His body is fighting that. Zyra looked at the readings again, her markings shifted. You are suggesting we stop treatment, she said slowly. I'm suggesting you stop overpowering his system, Ethan replied. Give it room to respond. That would be reckless, Zyra said. Doing nothing different is killing him, Ethan said, his voice steady but firm. Silence filled the room. The patient's condition worsened by the second. Zyra clenched her fists. The council observers watching remotely began to speak urgently among themselves. Finally, Zyra turned to Ethan. Her eyes burned with anger and fear. You will propose a solution, she said. Now, Ethan took a breath. Reduce external regulation, slowly. Let his internal systems adjust. If you can, lower neural stimulation and allow natural response patterns. That goes against everything we know, Zyra said. Sometimes, Ethan replied, what you know is the problem. For a long moment, Zyra didn't move. Then slowly she gave the order. The machines pulled back. The glowing field dimmed. The patient's convulsions slowed. A quiet gasp spread through the room. His breathing became steadier. His skin color stabilized. The alarms faded. No one spoke. Zyra stared at the readings in disbelief. This should not be possible, Ethan exhaled slowly. It's not a cure, just a chance. The patient slept peacefully now. Zyra turned to Ethan, her expression unreadable. What you did was not science, she said. Ethan met her gaze. It was medicine. The room remained silent, but something had changed. For the first time since arriving, Ethan felt it clearly. The Velari had technology beyond imagination. But today, for the first time, they had encountered something they did not understand. And a human had shown them the crack in their perfection. The room did not return to normal after that moment. The machines were quieter now, as if they too were unsure. The Velari doctors stood in small groups, whispering in low tones. Their confidence had cracked and everyone could feel it. Ethan remained near the glass, watching the young patient breathe. Slow, steady, alive. Dr. Zyra Valeth said nothing for a long time. She stared at the floating medical displays, her eyes moving quickly as she reviewed every reading. Her silver markings shifted again and again, a sign of deep thought among her people. This stabilization should not persist, she finally said. Once regulation is reduced, failure should increase. But it didn't, Ethan replied calmly. Zyra turned to him. One result does not change centuries of science. No, Ethan agreed, but it asks a question. She did not like that answer. He could see it in her posture. Still, she did not order him removed. That alone told Ethan something important. The council decided the patient would remain under observation instead of full intervention. That decision alone shocked the medical staff. For the Velari, allowing uncertainty was dangerous. They trusted machines more than instincts, numbers more than experience. Ethan was assigned to observe alongside Zyra, not as an equal, not even as a partner, more like a test subject that could speak. The hours passed slowly. The patient's condition did not worsen. In fact, small signs of improvement appeared. Muscle tension reduced. Neural activity became more balanced. Zyra noticed everything. "You did not introduce chemicals," she said at last. "No," Ethan replied. "You did not alter genetics. No, you did not repair damaged tissue." "There was no damage to repair," Ethan said. Zyra's eyes narrowed. "Then explain what you did." Ethan leaned against the console. "I stopped forcing the body to behave the way your machines expect. I let it react naturally." Zyra made a sharp sound. "Natural reactions are unreliable." "They're unpredictable," Ethan corrected. "Not unreliable." She turned away, clearly frustrated. Later that cycle, another alert echoed through the spire. A second patient collapsed. This one was older, a respected Velari official. His symptoms were similar but more severe: rapid neural spikes, loss of muscle control, extreme internal stress. The medical teams moved quickly. Machines surrounded the patient, activating full regulation protocols. Ethan watched as the same pattern repeated: perfect control, perfect balance, and yet the patient's condition worsened. Zyra noticed Ethan watching. "You believe this is the same condition," she said. "I believe it's related," Ethan answered. She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Our scans show no error." "That doesn't mean there isn't one," Ethan said. Her markings darkened. "You keep implying our systems are flawed." "I'm saying they were built for a different kind of biology," Ethan replied. "One that doesn't face constant pressure." Zyra looked at the suffering patient. For the first time, Ethan saw doubt in her eyes. She did not invite him forward, but she did not stop him either. Ethan stepped closer and studied the readings. He looked for patterns, not perfection: spikes, drops, timing. His mind worked the way it always did during emergencies: quiet, focused, human. "He's fighting the regulation," Ethan said. "That is impossible," one doctor replied. "The system adapts faster than any biological process." "Not faster than fear," Ethan said softly. The Velari doctors turned toward him. "Fear?" Zyra asked sharply. "Stress," Ethan explained. "Your people removed illness, pain, and recovery from daily life, but your bodies still react to threat. When the system forces calm, the body panics more." Zyra stared at the patient. "You are saying our perfection is harming us." "I'm saying it leaves no room to adapt," Ethan replied. The patient convulsed violently. Alarm screamed. Zyra clenched her jaw. "Reduce regulation," she ordered. The doctors froze. "That is against protocol," one said. "I am aware," Zyra snapped. "Do it." The machines pulled back slightly. The convulsions slowed but did not stop. Ethan shook his head. "Not enough." Zyra looked at him. "Careful, human." "We need to introduce controlled stress," Ethan said. "Not remove all support. Just enough for the body to respond." "You are asking us to hurt him," Zyra said. "I'm asking you to trust him," Ethan replied. The council observers appeared again on the holographic display. They argued loudly among themselves. Some demanded full intervention. Others demanded answers. Zyra closed her eyes for one long moment. "Do it," she said. The regulation dropped further. The patient cried out, a sound the Velari rarely made. Several doctors turned away. Then something changed. The neural spikes shifted pattern. The patient's breathing adjusted on its own. His muscles relaxed, not because of force but because his body decided to. The reading stabilized. Silence filled the chamber again. Zyra's hands trembled slightly. She hit it quickly. "This should not work," she whispered. "But it did," Ethan said. The second patient survived. News spread quickly through the medical spire. Some Velari were curious. Others were angry. Many were afraid. Human medicine was no longer a joke. Zyra requested a private session with Ethan. They met in a quiet room overlooking the city. Outside, massive towers glowed under artificial light. Everything was clean, perfect, controlled. "You embarrass my profession," Zyra said without greeting. Ethan didn't smile. That wasn't my goal. You question everything we built, she continued, with theories based on weakness. With experience based on survival, Ethan replied. She studied him carefully. Humans evolved with disease, injury, and loss. That shaped your thinking. Yes, Ethan said. And it taught us that the body is not fragile, it's stubborn. Zyra looked away. Our species removed suffering to achieve stability. And lost resilience, Ethan said gently. She turned back to him. If your methods spread, they will change Velari medicine forever. That's not a bad thing, Ethan said. For us, she replied, change is terrifying. Ethan nodded. For humans too, we just learned how to live with it. An alarm interrupted them. A third case. This one was different. A child. The room filled with tension as they rushed back. The child's condition was unstable, rapidly shifting between extremes. The machine struggled to keep up. Zyra looked at Ethan. For the first time, she did not mock him. What would you do? She asked. Ethan swallowed. I would listen to what the body is asking for. Not what the machines want. She hesitated only a second. Then you will lead, she said. The room went silent. A human was about to guide Velari medicine, and the galaxy had just crossed a line it could never uncross. The medical chamber felt smaller than before. The lights were still bright, the machine still advanced, but the confidence that once filled the room was gone. Every Velari doctor stood tense as the child lay inside the transparent field. The child's small chest rose and fell too fast, then too slow. The readings jumped without pattern. Ethan stood at the edge of the platform. He could feel dozens of eyes on him. Alien eyes filled with fear, doubt, and something new, expectation. Zyra stood beside him. Her posture was straight, but her hands were clenched behind her back. You will speak clearly, she said. Every action will be questioned. That's fine, Ethan replied. Lives should be questioned. The child made a weak sound. Ethan stepped closer to the glass. Reduce external control by 10%, he said. Several doctors reacted at once. That will destabilize him, one argued. He's already unstable, Ethan replied. You're just hiding it. Zyra raised her hand. Do it. The machines adjusted. The glowing field dimmed slightly. The child's breathing became uneven, then paused for a frightening second. Ethan leaned forward, watching carefully. Wait, he said. Don't touch anything. The pause ended. The child gasped and inhaled deeply on his own. A quiet sound of shock moved through the room. He chose to breathe, Ethan said softly. That matters. Zyra's eyes stayed on the readings. Explain. Your systems decide everything for the body, Ethan said, but sometimes the body needs to remember how to decide. The child's temperature rose suddenly. Internal heat increasing, a doctor warned. Good, Ethan said. Several heads snapped toward him. Good, Zyra repeated sharply. Yes, Ethan said. It means his system is responding. Fever isn't always the enemy, it's a tool. That goes against our training, one doctor said. That's because your training assumes perfection, Ethan replied. Humans never had that luxury. The temperature continued to rise, then slowly stabilized. The child's muscles relaxed. His breathing slowed. The room was silent except for the soft hum of machines. Minutes passed, then more. The child did not crash, he stabilized. A Velari nurse stepped closer, scanning again and again. Neural balance improving. Zyra stared at the display. Her markings shifted rapidly, a clear sign of internal conflict. This is not technological healing, she said. No, Ethan replied. It's biological recovery. The child's eyes fluttered open. A soft gasp filled the chamber. He's awake, someone whispered. The child looked around weakly, confused but alive. His small hand moved, gripping the air. A Velari attendant rushed forward, tears forming in her eyes. Zyra turned slowly toward Ethan. You did not heal him, she said. Ethan nodded. He healed himself. I just stopped you from getting in the way. The words hung in the air. No one argued. The council arrived within the hour. Their holographic forms filled the upper chamber, towering and bright. Their voices echoed with authority and tension. "This human has interfered with Velari medical law," one council member said, "and saved 3 lives," another replied. Zyra stepped forward. "The results cannot be denied. But the method is uncontrolled," a council member argued. "Unpredictable." Ethan spoke before Zyra could stop him. "So is life." The chamber went still. "You speak boldly for an outsider," the council said. "I speak as a doctor," Ethan replied. "Your medicine is powerful, but power without understanding creates fragility." "Explain," the council demanded. Ethan took a breath. He knew this moment mattered. "Humans evolved with constant threats," he said. "Infection, injury, starvation. Our bodies learned to adapt because they had to. Our medicine learned to support that adaptation, not replace it." "You are saying our species is weak," a council member said coldly. "No," Ethan replied. "I'm saying you are untested." Silence followed. Zyra looked at the council. "Our perfection removed struggle. That also removed resilience." Some council members reacted with anger, others with fear, a few with interest. "We did not know," one finally said. "That's not a failure," Ethan replied. "It's just a gap in experience." The council ordered a controlled study. Ethan's methods would be tested under supervision. Zyra was assigned to oversee it. That decision shocked everyone. After the meeting, Zyra and Ethan stood alone again. "You have put me in a difficult position," Zyra said. "You put yourself there when you chose truth over pride," Ethan replied. She studied him carefully. "You are not what I expected from a human," Ethan smiled faintly. "We get that a lot." Over the next cycles, controlled trials began. Velari patients with unexplained conditions were treated using hybrid methods. Machines were used, but not allowed to dominate. Stress responses were observed, not erased. Recovery was allowed, not forced. The results were impossible to ignore. Patients recovered faster. Some conditions disappeared entirely. Velari doctors were confused, frustrated, and fascinated. Not everyone approved. A group within the medical academy resisted fiercely. They accused Ethan of introducing chaos into Velari science. They warned that trusting biological instinct would lead to disaster. One cycle, sabotage occurred. A patient under Ethan's method suddenly crashed. Machines surged back to full control without authorization. The patient survived, but barely. Zyra was furious. "This was intentional," she said. "Yes," Ethan replied, "and it proves my point." "How?" she demanded. "Fear," Ethan said. "Fear is fighting change harder than any disease." The council launched an investigation. Tensions grew across the spire. Some called for Ethan's removal. Others demanded his protection. Zyra found herself standing between two worlds. She visited Ethan late one cycle in the observation wing. "Do you regret coming here?" she asked. Ethan looked out at the city. "No, but I understand why you're afraid." "I am not afraid," Zyra said automatically. Ethan turned to her. "You are, and that's okay." She didn't argue. "The truth," she said quietly, "is that your medicine exposes something we lost." "What's that?" Ethan asked. "Trust," Zyra replied, "in ourselves." An alarm echoed through the spire. Another case, but this one was different. The readings were unfamiliar. Even Ethan frowned. "This isn't the same condition," he said. Zyra looked at the data. Her markings darkened. "This is something new," she said. The patient's systems were failing rapidly, not from stress, not from regulation, from collapse. Ethan's expression hardened. "This isn't about resilience," he said. "This is about survival." Zyra looked at him sharply. "Can your methods handle this?" Ethan stared at the dying patient. "I don't know," he admitted. The room fell silent. For the first time since he arrived, Ethan faced something his experience could not explain. And the galaxy waited to see if human medicine could go further or finally fail. The chamber felt colder, though the temperature had not changed. The patient lay motionless inside the field. his skin losing color by the second. The machines around him worked at full capacity, but the readings only worsened. This was not panic. This was not resistance. This was shutdown. Ethan stared at the displays, his mind racing. He had seen many things in his career, trauma, disease, failure, but this was different. The body was not fighting, it was giving up. This is not stress collapse, Ethan said slowly. This is systemic surrender. Zyra looked at him sharply. Explain. In humans, Ethan said, choosing his words carefully, this happens when the body believes survival is impossible. When every signal says there is no point in continuing. That is psychological, a Velari doctor argued. No, Ethan replied. It's biological. Hope isn't emotion alone, it's chemistry, signals, permission to continue. Zyra's markings darkened deeply. Our medicine does not account for hope. That's because you removed despair, Ethan said. You never needed the opposite. The patient's neural activity dropped suddenly. Critical, someone shouted. Zyra turned to Ethan. Your methods stabilize resistance. But this is emptiness. What do we do? Ethan swallowed. He felt the weight of the room press against him. Every life he had saved had been built on something familiar. This was new ground. We give the body a reason, he said quietly. Silence followed. A reason? Zyra repeated. Yes, Ethan said, a signal that says survival matters. And how do we generate that? A doctor asked. Ethan looked at the machines. By stopping them from telling him he's already lost. Zyra hesitated. If we reduce support now, he will die. If you don't, Ethan replied, he already has. The council's holograms appeared again, summoned by the emergency. Their voices overlapped in sharp debate. This is reckless. This human is guessing. Our science has never failed this way. Zyra raised her voice. Enough. The chamber fell silent. She turned to the council. Our science has failed already. The question is whether we are willing to learn. She looked at Ethan. What do you need? Ethan took a breath. Reduce regulation gradually, not to force response, but to allow awareness. Then introduce controlled stimuli. Pain, someone asked sharply. No, Ethan said, connection. The Velari did not understand that word in this context. Ethan moved closer to the field. In humans, touch, voice, presence, they matter. They tell the body it is not alone. That is symbolic, a doctor argued. It's biological, Ethan replied. Nervous systems evolve to respond to others. Zyra stared at the patient. We do not touch patients, she said quietly. I know, Ethan said. That may be the problem. The patient's readings dropped again. Zyra made her decision. Reduce regulation, she ordered. The machines pulled back slightly. The patient's breathing became shallow. Ethan placed his hand gently on the glass. He knew the Velari could see the gesture even if the patient could not feel it physically. He spoke softly, calmly. You're still here, Ethan said. Your body hasn't failed you, it's just tired. The room was silent. The doctors watched, stunned. The neural readings flickered. Zyra's eyes widened. There is a response. Good, Ethan said. Increase sensory input. Light sound, slowly. The machines adjusted. The patient's chest rose more strongly. He's reacting, someone whispered. Ethan continued speaking. He did not know if the patient understood words. It didn't matter. Tone mattered. Rhythm mattered. Stay with us, Ethan said. You don't have to decide everything now, just breathe. The reading stabilized slightly. Not enough, but enough to hope. Zyra stepped closer. Slowly, she placed her hand on the glass beside Ethan's. Every Velari in the room froze. This was unheard of. I am here, she said quietly, her voice unsteady. You are not alone. The neural activity surged, then leveled. The patient gasped. A sound escaped Zyra that Ethan recognized immediately. Relief. Minutes passed, then more. The patient did not recover quickly. This was not a miracle, but he did not die. The body chose to continue. The room felt different now. Not triumphant, humbled. Later, in a private chamber, Zyra sat silently across from Ethan. Our medicine removed suffering, she said, but also connection. We heal bodies, not beings, Ethan nodded. Humans learned the hard way that you can't separate the two. The Council's final decision came that cycle. Human biological philosophy would be formally integrated into Velari medicine, not as replacement, but as foundation. Some opposed it, loudly. Others welcomed it with fear and curiosity. Zyra was appointed to lead the integration. She did not celebrate. Instead, she stood beside Ethan as the announcement spread. "You have changed my people," she said. "You changed yourselves," Ethan replied. She studied him. Why do humans endure so much and still care? Ethan thought of Earth, of hospitals, of long nights and small victories. "Because we had to," he said, "and because someone once stayed when it would have been easier to leave." The patient from earlier survived the cycle. Recovery was slow but real. Across the spire, Velari doctors began removing barriers, touching hands, speaking softly, watching instead of controlling. It was uncomfortable. It was terrifying. It worked. But not everyone accepted it. A message arrived late in the cycle, classified, urgent. Zyra read it twice before looking at Ethan. "This condition," she said slowly, "has appeared in another system." Ethan frowned. "Another patient, another world," Zyra replied. The readings showed the same collapse. Same surrender. Ethan felt a chill. "This isn't a flaw," he said. "It's a warning." Zyra met his eyes. "Of what?" Ethan looked at the data, then out at the stars beyond the spire. "Of what happens when a civilization forgets how to survive on its own." The galaxy had learned something dangerous, and humanity might be the only species that remembered what to do next. The grand spire was quieter than usual. The glow of the towers outside bathed the observation chamber in soft light, and for the first time since Ethan's arrival, it felt as though time itself was holding its breath. The patient, the young Velari child, was finally stable. His vital signs moved naturally, steadily, almost peacefully. Machines hummed softly, but they no longer dominated the room. They existed only to assist, not to control. Ethan leaned against the railing, watching the child sleep. Every detail, the rise and fall of his chest, the subtle twitch of his fingers, reminded him why he had come to this world. He had not come to teach or to dominate. He had come to help, and somehow that simple intention had reshaped an entire species, understanding of life and healing. Zyra Valeth stood beside him, unusually quiet. Her markings glimmered softly in the ambient light, shifting in patterns that revealed deep thought. "You have done what we could not," she said finally. Her voice was quieter than usual, almost reverent. Ethan shook his head. "I didn't do it. He did. I just helped him remember how to survive." Zyra studied him, her expression unreadable. "Your methods, your philosophy, it contradicts everything we have believed for cycles, and yet it works. Because it doesn't try to replace life," Ethan said. "It works with it." She exhaled slowly, a sound almost lost in the vastness of the chamber. "We have relied on our machines, our technology, our perfection. We believed that controlling every variable would guarantee survival, but control cannot replace understanding." Ethan looked at her. He had seen pride broken before, but what he saw in her now was different. Respect, tinged with something like relief, or maybe awe. The realization that even the most advanced civilization could learn from a human was something he hadn't expected, but he welcomed it. In the following cycles, the Council formally incorporated human methods into Velari medicine. The integration was slow, cautious, and met with resistance. Some doctors refused to adjust, insisting that perfection could not coexist with what they called primitive intuition. Others, inspired by the visible successes, began experiments blending machine regulation with human understanding of biology, resilience, and adaptive response. Zyra Valeth became the bridge between the two philosophies. She moved carefully, guiding her people through practices that emphasized observation, patience, and the subtle art of letting life take its own course. Slowly, the halls of the spire changed. Doctors spoke more quietly, their movements more measured. They watched, they listened, they allowed, instead of commanding. Ethan observed the change with quiet satisfaction. He had anticipated resistance. He had even expected failure, but the transformation went deeper than he imagined. He had not just saved lives. He had rekindled something in the Velari that their perfection had hidden: adaptability, humility, and trust in the living system they served. One morning, Zyra led him to a chamber he had not seen before. The room was empty except for a single patient lying on a soft, translucent bed. The monitors were minimal. A faint glow surrounded the patient, not intrusive but supportive. "This is the next test," Zyra said. Her voice carried weight. "The condition has appeared in another system. The council wants us prepared." Ethan studied the data. It was similar to the collapse he had seen before: systemic surrender, a failure of internal response. But there was something else, a subtle difference that suggested evolution in the pathogen or perhaps environmental influence. Either way, the situation was critical. "Then we treat," Ethan said simply. Zyra raised an eyebrow. "You say that as if it is simple." "It is," Ethan said. "It's just life. We guide, we support, we give the body a reason to continue. The rest is biology." Over the next cycles, they worked tirelessly. The patient's body was fragile, the internal systems erratic. Machines were on standby but remained passive. Ethan guided the Velari doctors, teaching them to observe patterns, to understand signs that no machine could detect, to respond with careful human judgment. The process was not immediate. The patient faltered, slowed, seemed on the edge of collapse more than once. But each time, with gentle intervention, controlled stimuli, and careful observation, the child stabilized. His recovery was gradual, real, and complete. During one particularly long cycle, Zyra spoke quietly to Ethan. "You have taught my people to listen, not to control." "That is something we never thought we needed to learn," Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we already knew deep down but ignored." Zyra studied him. "Your species endures so much: struggle, disease, weakness, yet you survive. And now your methods may save an entire civilization." Ethan shrugged. "We adapt. That's what humans do, and we care deeply because we've learned how fragile life can be." As the child fully regained strength, Zyra and Ethan stood together in the observation chamber. The machines had returned to their silent guardianship, active but restrained. The Velari doctors who had doubted the human methods watched with newfound respect. Some even approached, seeking advice, guidance, and understanding. "It seems your presence here has changed more than medicine," Zyra said. "Maybe it's always been the same lesson," Ethan replied. "Sometimes the smallest voice can remind the universe how to listen." The council convened one last time before Ethan's return to Earth. They formally acknowledged the success of human-integrated methods and endorsed the creation of a new institute for hybrid medicine. Velari and human scientists would collaborate, combining technology, observation, and understanding of biological resilience. The announcement rippled across the galaxy. Humans were no longer seen as weak or primitive. They were a species that had endured, adapted, and in their endurance held lessons others had forgotten. Zyra approached Ethan after the meeting, her expression calm but her eyes intense. "Will you stay?" she asked quietly. Ethan shook his head. "Earth is waiting, but what we started here will continue. That's what matters." She nodded, a faint smile forming. "You have changed my world, and perhaps in doing so reminded it how to survive." Ethan took one last look at the grand spire. He had come as an outsider, a human in a galaxy that saw him as weak. He was leaving as a teacher, a bridge between species, and a reminder that life itself, imperfect, fragile, resilient, was the greatest medicine of all. As he boarded the shuttle back to Earth, he looked at the stars stretching across the sky. Somewhere out there, other species would face the same tests, the same collapses. but humanity had shown that survival was not about perfect technology. It was about understanding, resilience, and the courage to act when no machine could save the day. And in that knowledge, Ethan smiled. The galaxy had learned something powerful, that even the most advanced civilization could benefit from the hard-earned lessons of a species that refused to surrender, no matter how primitive it seemed. For the first time, the stars felt alive, not because of the machines that illuminated them, but because of the living, breathing beings who chose to survive and care. And in that choice, humanity had proven itself remarkable, unstoppable, and endlessly valuable. The journey home would be long, but the legacy of what he had done would stretch across light years. Zyra's people would remember, other species would hear. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the galaxy, the word would spread. Humanity, fragile yet enduring, had changed the universe forever. Ethan leaned back in his seat, thinking of the child he had helped save, of Zyra who had learned humility, and of the countless lives that would be touched by this new way of understanding medicine. The stars outside the shuttle blurred as they accelerated. And for the first time, he allowed himself a small, quiet smile. The galaxy was vast, full of danger, full of mystery, full of life waiting to be understood, and humanity was ready.